Have you ever had a narcissistic friend? It's really hard to identify them at first because they come off like in that charming stage. They come off as the very, very best, perfect mate as friend for you. You have so much in common and they want to spend all their time with you. The problem is, things start to fall apart. You start to see patterns that are a little bit weird, a little bit strange, and you don't understand them. For example, they might not have a long history of friends, real friends, long time friends. That's a clue right there. If you are dealing with someone that has very fragmented relationships, this might be why. This might be the indication to you that there's something here that isn't quite right. Today I've got a special guest, Babita Spinelli. She is a therapist and a doctor in New York, and she is going to talk to us about narcissistic friends, how to identify them, and what to do with them when you figure it out. As all things in the narcissistic world, there is stages. Idealization in the beginning, discard, and a sort of devaluation in the middle there, right? They're going to change. Maybe you're not there all the time when they need it, so they go hunting for someone else. It's going to go out with them every single night. That's where the devaluation starts. They start to change the patterns that they've been doing with you. The discard is always so horrific, even with a friend narcissist. They are smearing your names and you're just sitting there left going, why are they doing this? I don't understand it. Why can't it just sort of fade away like a normal relationship? That's not possible. So without any further ado, let's welcome Babita and see if we can get some more information on how to handle a narcissistic friend. This is Tracy Malone. I am the founder of NarcissistAbuseSupport.com. If you are looking for more information on a narcissistic friend or getting some support, please visit my website and we will see you there. Here's Babita.
Hi, Tracy. So great to be here.
I love doing videos with you, and people are so appreciative of your knowledge.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to do this one.
Oh, yay. So let's jump right into it. Today we're going to talk about narcissistic friends. So what does that look like? So you've been working with clients for a long time, and I know for me, when I discovered my romantic relationships had been narcissistic, I started to learn a lot about it, and then all of a sudden I started to sort of eliminate friends that I started to see these behaviors in, and things I've tolerated, some of them my whole life. So what does having a narcissistic friend look like?
You know, it's such a great question, and this topic is so impactful because usually when one comes in, they're talking about, as you said, a narcissistic relationship or a narcissistic parent, or maybe noticing narcissistic traits in children. But it is such a huge bucket around friends that are narcissists and that are in that spectrum of narcissism. So the way it shows up, usually what happens is, let's say like an individual therapy, someone might come in, either they're lasering in on a particular life issue or trauma, or it's, you know, as I say, therapy for everyday life. Like there's all these things that are constantly coming up, right? And in their journey, they may bring in a troublesome friend, someone that they're really struggling with. Now, usually what happens is, as they're describing and we go through this therapeutic journey of sort of exploring this friendship and this friend, red flags start to pop up. I start to notice things that the client is telling me about this particular individual. And so I'll describe those in terms of how it shows up. And this is to parse out what I'm noticing about what the person is describing, how they're feeling. And we could talk about that, you know, in a bit. But the way the narcissistic friend shows up is usually, this is somebody that an individual might have been friends with either for a long time, and they may not have noticed that this was an issue or troublesome until they're actually either one, have ended a narcissistic relationship and they're becoming more aware of it, or they're feeling quite challenged every time they're with this person. There's quite an impact on them. Some of the red flags that they might end up describing go something like this. This person is always talking about themselves. There's never any give and take in the friendship. This person might be overly critical to the friend. So they're constantly talking about something the friend should have done, didn't do, actions or behaviors that the friend might have taken that where errors are now loom very large. The narcissist makes them feel absolutely terrible every single time. It also shows up where the narcissist, who's a very, grandiose person, they always want to be the star of the show, right? They want to be the center and focus of everyone's attention. Right? So what happens is they push the friend aside, like literally and symbolically. They're very competitive. So it's an individual who's quite competitive. It also shows up in a lot of grandiosity, such as the narcissist always wants to show what they're doing. They are like the Mother Teresa, is how they want to be seen. That everything they do is so completely altruistic. And yet at the same time, there isn't a lot of empathy for their friend's subjective experience. There's no room for the friend to actually feel like they can share and be transparent about their feelings. And if they do, they're criticized.
Right.
There's a lot more. Should I keep going?
Sure, absolutely. I could listen all day.
Other times, clients will come in with noticing that this narcissist, that this individual, this friend, is unable to show up for them, unable to support them. That, let's say the friend is going through some sort of breakup. They'll often say something like, "Oh, that's really awful. You should have done this." Or, "Oh, I'm noticing that so-and-so did it better." And so they're often comparing you to somebody else. And that's pretty powerful in the friendship as well, the comparisons.
Yeah. And I remember that I thinking of a specific narcissistic friend, she used to be very jealous of my other friends. At first, she was, I want to say, latching on to my friends and friending them on Facebook, instant messaging and like doing video chats with people that I knew from high school that I don't even really talk to, but they were my friends. So she's latching on. So she's kind of infiltrating into my community, if you would, but then jealous of friends and telling me, "Oh, they're just this," or, "Oh, they're just using you," or they're putting down your other friends, which is a form of isolation. If you think about it, she wanted to break up my other friendships and be the only one. She wanted to be the goddess. And so therefore, all the other people that I called best friends had to get out of the picture. So she was smearing them and telling me things about them to triangulate me with them so that I would end my relationship with them. And that's what I've experienced.
Yeah, what you experienced is really so classic, so classically narcissistic, right? The isolation piece, the triangulation piece, the competitive nature, and the jealousy, which also turns into rage. And there's rage that you could have other friends. And it doesn't even have to be so explicit. It can be done almost like a snake in the grass, right? Slowly but surely, they start to completely isolate you. Slowly but surely, they start to find ways to discard the other friends in your life. The competitive piece of that friendship is so powerfully narcissistic. So if someone notices that someone is so competitive, that they want you all to themselves, that there's a possessive quality. Very similar is if there was a romantic relationship with a narcissist. It's very similar.
It is, yes, yeah. And they can't take criticism. So God forbid you tell them that their dress doesn't look good or it makes their butt look big, where they feel that they can always tell you. I mean, I have another friend who basically would come in, and I'd come in from Colorado and she'd say, You can't wear that here. I'm wearing this. What's wrong with what I'm wearing? That's not acceptable. She would actually put me in one of her dresses because I wasn't dressed appropriately. But dare I say something that, criticized her, the world would explode. That's when the rage would happen. That's when, a defriending situation could happen. It's that narcissistic injury when you criticize them, right?
Absolutely can't take any criticism, but they can absolutely give criticism. And they are extremely sensitive, but have no sensitivity. So I've had similarly, different clients that have come to see me when they have a narcissistic friend, literally in tears as they're describing the impact on their self-esteem with this individual who is constantly critical of them. They may be body shaming, right? Sort of really bullying in that way. They are socially ostracizing them. And if an individual has had their own trauma, all of that becomes triggered up for them as well. And it's really painful.
Yeah, it's really hard. And I know that, their end game is control. So whatever it is, they want you to stay in line. They need you to constantly tell them how wonderful they are and raise them up. But their job was in the beginning to tell you how great you were, but then it completely turns and the tables are completely opposite. If you don't keep up with them in giving them that constant attention, constant, they call you, you drop what you're doing. If you aren't able to keep up with that incredibly impossible pace, then you become on the down. You start to go lower and not as important, and they search for someone else to use, basically.
Yes, that's the other piece of it, is really checking in. Is this person a true friend? And with a narcissist, an actual authentic friendship cannot really exist, right? Especially if you're not feeding their narcissism. So the more that an individual, and I've noticed this with clients, as they become more aware, as they're exploring the narcissistic traits of this friendship and the impact that it has, the more they are not giving in to the adulation of the narcissist in the way they might have, or accommodating the narcissist in the way they might have before. And the narcissist will then prey on someone else. They will find someone else, but they also may throw this person to the wolves before they do it.
Yeah.
Right? They may end up ostracizing them if there's a group of friends and try to isolate them from not partaking in certain social activities. They may not include them in invites to things. Mm-hmm. They may end up on social media, perhaps making critical comments. These are the ways that it shows up.
Yeah, right. So what do you tell people when they're dealing with this? How can they cope? Because if they've never had the romantic or the family connection to this might be completely new to them. And they thought they had a friend here and things are blowing up. How do you help them when they're in this situation? What kind of advice can you give us?
Yes. Okay. So quite extensive advice. And a lot of it is also depending on the particular relationship with the individual. So if it's someone that's not coming from a space of trauma, and I say this for a reason, when someone comes from a space of trauma, meaning they've either been abused as a child, sexual or physically, they have dealt with substance abuse in the family, they had a narcissistic mother, they may have a harder time extricating from the friendship. They're used to that. In fact, it's a fabric of normalcy for them. Mm-hmm. So part of the work is, one, working with them on their own individual confidence and ability to feel more empowered within themselves until they can start to slowly extricate them from the friendship, and recognizing that they can set boundaries. So it might be a little bit of a slower journey in the therapeutic space for them. Mm-hmm. For others who may not be coming from that space, or they have dated a narcissist or they had a narcissistic mother and they're like, oh my God, how did I not see this? Mm-hmm. Then what we end up doing is saying, okay, we're recognizing you need to get out of this friendship, right? This is toxic for you. So what do we need to do? First, it's saying, what kind of language can you use with this friend to slowly get out of the friendship? And I don't mean ghosting them because they'll try and come after you. It's basically saying things like, I really appreciate our friendship, but so it has to be a lot of I words. I have got so much on my plate right now, and I'm just drowning. So you start to set the boundaries. Because if you say the you to a narcissist, immediately, right, a narcissistic reaction comes up. So you use I words. I'm in the middle of something. I'm dealing with something. It starts to sort of level it off until eventually you can slowly start to remove yourself with your many eyes of what's going on in your life. The other part is you can say something like this early on, but oftentimes, this is only if you want to try and maintain this friendship. And I don't always advocate for that, but if someone really wants to maintain this friendship for whatever reason, you say, sometimes, I feel very sensitive or hurt by some of the things that come up between us. What can we do to make this better? Because I would really like this to be better. Mm-hmm. And that's only if the person is really struggling because maybe they've known this person since they were 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And I would still advocate setting boundaries, but we start to use co-created language with the friend and see where that goes.
Okay, that makes sense.
The third part really would be, what is it that one can create in their life with regard to support? So for example, there's therapy, but there's also other supportive friends who can help you to sort of create boundaries with this person and ultimately end up cutting off the relationship. So if you end up forming your village, that's maybe outside of the group where the narcissist lands, or individuals you feel you can trust, they can really be your resources to to start to slowly do other things in your life and protect yourself. So you feel like you have your village around you, which is very important.
Absolutely, yeah. I know for me, an important part is to remember to never tell them that you think they're a narcissist. That is the kiss of death, and it's surely not going to work out well for you. But no matter who the narcissist is, telling them that causes, boom, the narc injury, and it could blow things up in a way that you can't even begin to expect. The other part, I think, for people who are going through this, that I'm always telling my clients, is when those smears and things like that towards the end, where you hear they're telling things to other people about you, it hurts you so much. It hurts to think your friend could go behind your back and do this sort of thing. It's very grade school, you're in the playground and they're over in the corner, and it's like high school. It's cliques and things like that. But knowing that the lies that they're telling they're liars, and these are just lies. We let those lies become us. We're like so quick to want to defend. I'm not that person. I didn't do that. We jump into that, and I don't think we can avoid that. But there's a point where we have to come to understanding that they're just lies, and we can't give power to those lies. They're liars. They're lying. No power here. Be gone. It helps you to kind of process the stuff they're saying about you instead of holding it. If we hold it and go, they're going to call me crazy, they're going to, you're only putting yourself in a worser place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree, Tracy. In fact, when I'm dealing with some recurring self-esteem issues with a client, and basically it's very powerful, the narcissistic friend also knows to capitalize on that because it makes them feel better. And so often with the client, we're working on recognizing, staying grounded, finding their inner confidence, and recognizing that the narcissist will try and introject and make them feel a certain way. And that for them to know who they are, to stay grounded in terms of their own confidence and values, and to recognize that this is about them and this isn't not about the individual. Sometimes it can be such a challenge because it's easy for individuals to get sucked into that vortex. And I think part of the journey, and part of, I think, this is why I think this video is so great and all of the stuff that you do, is that when an individual is educated and understands it better, they can then start to see, wait a second, this isn't about me not being good enough. This isn't about me not being pretty enough or smart enough or kind enough or loving enough. This is about having a friend who's a narcissist that wants me to feel this way and feels better about themselves when they do this to me. This is about them, not about me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect advice. It's exactly what it is. And I think that's what people with a narcissistic friend really struggle with. So thank you for telling us that. Is there anything else that you want to share with us about narcissistic friends? What people should know, be aware of, protect themselves?
Yeah, I'd say a few things. One, sometimes it may not come up so easily. Someone might keep, having particular actions, being super critical or ostracizing a person, etc. What you should notice is, what does this person make me feel like? And I know that that's an interesting phrase because someone might say, no one can make you feel like anything. I would disagree with that. What are you noticing that you're feeling like after you are spending time with this person? Are you feeling particularly drained, exhausted, depleted? Are you feeling particularly irritable? Do you find yourself feeling anxious? Do you notice that maybe after spending extensive time with this person, you might even feel mildly depressed? Do you notice that you might want to sleep or lay down? Do you notice if you find something coming up in your body? Sometimes our bodies are our trigger points. Pain in the back, a migraine headache, your heart is racing, even shooting pain down the leg, stomach pain. People are surprised about what comes up for them in their body when I start to point that out as they're having had, a relationship with a narcissistic friend, that this mind-body manifestation takes place. Mm-hmm. So if someone is noticing these things, I would suggest taking a step back and saying, I may be surrounded by a narcissistic friend. This is what's coming up for me. So those are warning signs. The second part I would suggest is make sure that you set those boundaries. If this person is in your life and you're trying to extricate, or you're having a hard time extricating, set those boundaries. Do not get caught up in their web. If they're trying to engage you in, let's say, a text message exchange, which can often happen, or an email exchange, and they're being very toxic, turn it off very gently. Oh, I'm sorry, I've got to go do something else. Do not fall into that dark vortex because they want to suck you in. So set your boundaries. The other piece of it is oftentimes when I see clients, it's the aftermath of the narcissistic friend. So the relationship may have ended, but they're still reeling from it. And so in those situations, we really do a lot of work, and this is what I'd recommend, is rebuilding the confidence and self-esteem, regrounding yourself. And that might take the shape of sort of more tool-oriented spaces, where you're literally going back and replacing the negative cognitions that were instilled by the narcissist with positive cognitions. Remembering that and rebuilding yourself from that space, especially if it was a long-term narcissistic friendship. Mm-hmm. In the same way that you have to do it when there was the narcissistic mother or the narcissistic romantic partner.
Okay.
Very similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's rebuilding your toolbox around your self-esteem, your confidence, and feeling safe. It's very important. And that's sort of the aftermath when the friendship has ended.
Yeah.
And you're still sitting with it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And also just, I think, recommending that they get some help talk to someone about this if you didn't understand that this was a narcissistic relationship. That's when it's really confusing. Once you actually can identify their behaviors, it takes a completely different look. But then you question yourself as to, well, why did I miss that? Or how come I didn't know? Or I've been friends with her for 41 years. How could I have tolerated this all this time? So when you get into counseling and you talk to someone like us, you're going to get those questions answered, and the mystery that is surrounding what happened is going to make so much more sense. And it takes a lot of weight off yourself, because you'll have self-blame. What did I do wrong? Maybe they were telling you you did things wrong and you aren't a good friend, and you're owning that. So by understanding what you were dealing with in that aftermath, that is going to be so much freeing for you.
Oh, Tracy, that is so true. You've experienced it, I've experienced it, where individuals have said, I cannot believe I didn't see this, or how did I tolerate this for so long? And then they'll say, what's wrong with me? Mm-hmm. And this is where, as you do, share your own experiences and point out, look, it's not so easy sometimes to be so aware of it, and this is why. And I'll often in that space also disclose, I've had my own experiences. And until you start to become aware, become educated, talk to someone about it, you don't feel so alone. You stop beating yourself up over it, as you realize, I'm not alone in this. It is very easy to go into the vortex of a narcissist.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they're good at it.
They are.
And they also don't necessarily always start off in that way. You kind of first start off with them being very complimentary and very loving, and then boom, there you have it. Yeah. 20, 30 years go by.
Exactly. You know, it takes that moment, and it might have been that you criticized her big butt or something like that, that all of a sudden you're seeing like a different person. I think that is the confusing part. That is the confusing part for me and my 41-year friend, was it just took one time where I just criticized back, and that was sort of the end, where I saw a completely different person, and the claws came out, and it was ugly, and I didn't understand why. And now I get the whole picture. So if someone is struggling, do some more research, learn about this, and get some help. I'm a big proponent of support groups, and we have about 300 listed on my website from all over the country. So I really recommend that people get into that, because even though it's just a passing friend, it hurts, and it helps to talk to other people, so you know you're not alone.
I agree. I think it's amazing that you have those support groups, and for people to share their stories and to recognize that they can change their narrative and they can actually forge healthy friendships. Yes. And what they experienced is not normal, but that there are others that have been through it too. So those support groups are just amazing, to not feel alone and to feel supported and to understand it. Mm-hmm. But also, when you kind of go through that process and get the support and help, I don't know if you felt this way, but it is so liberating. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It is so liberating to finally be free.
Yes. Yeah. And to have friends that get it, because most of the time our other friends and family that have never experienced this don't know how to help us. So when you find a group and you find people that understand, or maybe they're just learning, but you can help them, it becomes a new whole support system. And every time I have my groups, I just come home, I'm on a cloud. I'm so excited, and I'm like watching the new people come in, and they might be crying and they might be sad. And then I watch other people who have long since like healed and come back to help others. And that's the beautiful part of it. We become a family. And so it's really very special. So I'm hoping lots of people keep on finding these groups.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. And I like that you said it becomes a family, because often one gets caught up in a narcissistic friendship if they've had a family member or family members that are narcissistic. And so they can't always turn to their family for healing or for understanding, because the family itself is narcissistic. So it's beautiful to know that there are others out there that are like family to help you through it.
Yeah. And for me, I didn't have a strong sister relationship with my real sisters. So my narcissistic friend took that role over. She saw that as my vulnerability. She became my sister, which then ingratiated me towards her. And that was a technique. She knew my weaknesses, that I had crappy sisters. Oh, I'll be your sister. They use that against you. So now you've got to create a whole new family because you've lost the fake sister and the real sisters. So find a group and find some support.
I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank
so
you.
Important.
Thank you so much, Babita, for sharing this with us. I really am so excited to talk to you again. And I know we will be talking again soon because I love your expertise and I know the world needs to hear it. So thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Tracy. I feel exactly the same way.
All right. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Isn't she great? I love interviewing Babita. She is brilliant and she has so much information. After we closed off the video for you guys, we talked about how we could have talked for hours about this topic. If you have a narcissistic friend, visit my website. I've got a great page and a free ebook that you can download to help you understand this a little bit more. You are not alone and you will be okay. It's going to take some time and some deprogramming, if you would. But these people are all around us. It's really how we learn to deal with them and how we learn to recover from them that we gain our strength. This is Tracy Malone. That is all I've got. And visit my website, narcissistabusesupport.com. Have a great day.